The cameras were already rolling when Jasmine Crockett stepped into the long oak-floored hearing room. It was the kind of event networks broke schedules for. Headlines flashed across screens. Live Chief Justice Roberts to rule on Crockett. Ethics case. Bright lights hung above like silent judges, and every major news channel was watching. 1,000 eyes outside the chamber and hundreds more inside. What was supposed to be a routine hearing had turned into a national moment. Representative Jasmine Crockett, sharp-eyed and calm, sat down across from Chief Justice John Roberts. He looked unusually stern, like the weight of more than justice pressed on him. This wasn't a normal day in Washington. "Congresswoman Crockett," he began, his voice smooth but cold. "You've been called under Article 24B, a rarely used provision." Crockett leaned forward, not blinking. "You mean the one meant for rogue lobbyists, not elected representatives?" A murmur passed through the room. Roberts didn't flinch. "You've violated procedural boundaries. You leaked protected committee notes. You disrupted national order by suggesting that this court serves private interests and does it." Crockett replied sharply. "Or are we just pretending the donations tied to recent rulings are ... coincidences?" Gasps. Some aides turned, their eyes down, others scribbled furiously on notepads. That was the tension in the air. The unspoken war between power and exposure. Justice Roberts raised his gavel, but paused midair. "You are hereby fined $200,000 for contempt and procedural misconduct," he said, tapping the gavel once. "Effective immediately." The silence hit like thunder. Crockett didn't move. Her face changed, not with fear, but focus. "I will respond," she said, slowly rising. Her lapel mic caught her voice clearly. But in the few seconds before she spoke, something else filtered through. A crackle. Barely noticeable, like static. But buried in that static was a coded phrase, masked by Crockett's breath. To the public, it was nothing. But across the river in Virginia, inside a locked CIA listening facility, an analyst's monitor blinked red. Audio logs flagged a series of tones embedded in the stream. The words filtered through. Signal Echo 11 confirmed. The analyst froze. That phrase wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It hadn't been heard since 2017, not outside of Ghost, protocols, and restricted archives. She replayed it, slowed it down, ran the waveform through legacy software. Same match. She grabbed her supervisor's arm. "We've got a live activation," she whispered. "It's from a congressional mic." Back in the hearing room, Crockett's voice came through strong. "This fine," she said, looking directly at Roberts, "is not justice. It's intimidation. You don't fine people for demanding truth. You fine them to scare others from." Asking reporters typed faster. Cameras zoomed in. Roberts stayed silent, his jaw tight. He could feel the blowback starting to build like a coming storm. Crockett continued. "I have nothing to hide, but I know this court does. I know that. Certain rulings are bought, not argued. And this," she pointed to the desk, "is not law. It's theater. For the donors, for the deals, for the silence, more murmurs." In the back, a clerk stood with a phone buzzing in her hand. She turned it over. It was from Langley. A one-line message, trace the source. Echo Protocol may be active. The camera feed suddenly glitched for half a second. Nobody in the chamber seemed to notice, but that blink of light was enough. The CIA feed registered a cross signal from an anonymous satellite bounce as if someone had just hijacked the hearing's live frequency, and then everything returned to normal. Justice Roberts leaned forward, sweating slightly. "This hearing is adjourned," he said quickly, almost nervously. Crockett didn't sit down. She walked out, head high, her mic still live. The entire room remained frozen for several seconds after her exit. Across the country, Twitter exploded. Hashtag Crockett vs. Roberts was trending within 5 minutes. CNN broke into programming. FOX called it a meltdown. MSNBC called it a revolution. But in the intelligence community, no one was talking politics. They were talking code, talking protocol. Someone inside the Capitol had just activated something hidden for years. And whatever signal Echo 11 inches meant, it had just begun. The lights in the hearing room had dimmed. Reporters packed up, still whispering about what just happened. But in a downtown Washington parking garage, Jasmine Crockett was meeting someone who didn't want to be seen in daylight. His name was Ezra. He used to work for the NSA before he vanished. Now he stood beside a pillar, wearing a gray hoodie and keeping his voice low. "You did it," he said. "You triggered the phrase." Jasmine didn't nod, so it worked. Ezra looked around. "Langley will be on fire right now. Echo 11 is a red flag buried so deep even most intel guys don't know what it's linked to." She folded her arms. "You told me this protocol would force them to surface the documents." "It will," he replied, "but it'll come at a price." Jasmine already knew that. She was risking her entire political career. But this wasn't about her anymore. They find me to bury the leaks, but if I go down, I'm dragging the truth with me. Ezra pulled out a flash drive and handed it to her. "This has the backup names, meeting logs, encrypted memos, everything the justice system signed off on, thinking no one would ever find it. What do I do with it?" "You don't. Not yet. Someone in the CIA already knows. Let them. Chase it. Make them sweat." Before she could ask more, Ezra was gone, disappearing into a stairwell like a ghost. Jasmine stood in the silence, the flash drive burning in her palm. Elsewhere, deep inside Langley, a CIA operations team was gathered in a sealed room. On a wall-sized screen, they watched a digital waveform captured from the hearing's audio feed. At the center of it pulsed the phrase, "Signal Echo 11 confirmed." A senior analyst named Carter walked in. He was in his 50s, ex-military, now wearing a black badge, the kind reserved for projects that don't officially exist. He stared at the screen. "Tell me exactly how this happened." One of the techs replied nervously, "It wasn't triggered by us." The phrase was embedded in the Congresswoman's mic. She must have worn it intentionally. Carter's face hardened. Echo 11 was deactivated after the Berlin summit leak in 2019. If it's live again, someone's using it as leverage. Leverage for what? Carter didn't answer. Instead, he gave a single order. Find out who trained Crockett, who gave her the codes, and start surveillance now. The next morning, Crockett appeared on CNN. Her team had secured the interview within hours of the courtroom explosion. The anchor asked questions about the fine. Jasmine smiled politely and repeated her line. "This is not about money. It's about silence. And I don't do silence." Millions watched. So did someone else on the other side of the Atlantic. In a secure room in London's MI6 headquarters, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a scar above her brow watched the segment closely. She turned to her assistant. "Confirm it." "That mic glitch yesterday? It wasn't a glitch." The assistant nodded. "Echo chain is real and it's been activated." The woman swore under her breath. Bloody Americans never clean up their mess. If she leaks what's inside Echo, the Berlin protocols, the trade blacklists, the European surveillance trials, the whole alliance burns. That same afternoon, in a quiet Senate corridor, Crockett was approached by a man in a charcoal suit, no name, no badge. Just a voice that said, "You've made some very powerful people nervous." She didn't stop walking. Then maybe they shouldn't have broken the law. He matched her step. "You think this is about law? This is about balance? About order? You push too far and the world shakes." "Maybe it needs to shake." He smiled coldly. "You don't drop this, you'll lose everything. Career, protection. Your life won't be safe." She paused at the stairwell, turned to face him fully. "Good. That means I'm finally in the right place." She took the stairs down alone, leaving behind the sound of political comfort. Walking straight into a storm she had already chosen. And in a far corner of the intelligence world, someone was watching her from a satellite feed. It's a single word. Flashed on their encrypted screen, Phase 2. To be continued. The Capitol was quieter than usual the next morning. But silence never meant safety in Washington, D.C. Jasmine Crockett sat in her office with the blinds pulled halfway. Her legal team had just left. They advised her to go silent, apologize, publicly, and maybe the storm would pass. But she didn't want it to pass. She wanted it to burn. On her desk, the flash drive Ezra gave her sat in an envelope marked personal. She hadn't plugged it in yet. She knew the second she did, the signal would be traceable. Encryption or not, Langley would pick it up. So she waited. Instead, she opened an old notebook, the one she used back when she first entered politics. Her first notes, her first promises to herself. In bold handwriting, never bow to power that hides behind silence. A knock on the door, her chief of staff, Nora, stepped in. She looked tense. There's a guy downstairs. He doesn't have an appointment. Says he's with International Policy Integrity. Fake office. Yeah, once 5 minutes. Jasmine didn't hesitate. Send him up. Watch him from the hallway. 2 minutes later, the man entered. Slim, gray tie. Black shoes polished to a mirror. He didn't sit. Congresswoman, he said. I'm here off the record. Then? Why are you standing in my office? He smiled faintly. 'Cause I don't want my voice recorded. May I? He pointed at the smart speaker on her bookshelf. She nodded. He unplugged it. Then he leaned in. You've triggered something that was never meant to be touched again. Echo chain was shut down for a reason. Jasmine folded her arms. 'Cause it was too dangerous or too truthful. He didn't answer. Instead, he opened a folder and laid it on her desk. Inside, photos, documents, a surveillance image from an airport in Zurich. Jasmine's name highlighted on a manifest. She never remembered boarding. That's not me. He closed the folder. No, it's your shadow. Someone's been using your name. You're being used, Congresswoman. It's just like Ezra was. Just like Ezra was. Her stomach turned. Ezra is a patriot. Ezra disappeared for a reason, he said. He's not the only one who knows about Berlin. About? The summit cover-ups. About the missing delegates who were never supposed to be there. She stood now. Are you threatening me? He paused. No. I'm inviting you to back out before this becomes a headline you won't survive. Then he left. Jasmine stood there alone, the walls of her office suddenly feeling too close. A fake flight record? False documents? It wasn't just about the echo chain anymore. It was about her. That evening, she met Ezra again, not in a garage this time, but in a church that had closed 5 years ago. The stained glass windows cast eerie reds and blues across the pews. Ezra was already waiting, watching through the slits of boarded windows. They faked a flight log under my name, she said, walking down the aisle like it was a courtroom. I know, he replied. They're trying to paint you as compromised. Once they do that, no one will believe a word you say. What is Echo Chain really? Ezra took a moment before answering. In 2019, a group of intelligence officials and corporate diplomats met in Berlin off the books. They created an emergency framework. If exposed, it would prove that multiple nations were using anti-terror laws to monitor economic rivals, not terrorists, corporations, even senators. Jasmine felt a chill. They were spying on our own Congress. Ezra nodded. And the fine, she asked? The $200,000. It's distraction, he said. They used a minor legal infraction to try and scare you off if you pushed back too hard. So they flipped the script. But if we release the truth, then they burn cities to protect secrets. Back at Langley, Carter stood before a large satellite map. His analysts had found the meeting location, the old church. Do we move? One agent asked. Carter considered. Not yet. Let her think she's in control. Let her dig deeper. The second she opens that drive, she'll trigger Phase 3. What's Phase 3? He turned to the agent with a hard look. You don't want to know. Later that night, Jasmine returned home. No staff, no phone calls. Just her, the flash drive, and the silence. She sat at her kitchen table. The clock ticked past midnight. With a deep breath, she plugged the drive into a secure laptop. Nothing happened at first. Then a file auto-opened. A video, grainy security footage. Timestamped Berlin, 2019. Inside the room, high-ranking officials from 5 nations. 2 tech CEOs, and one face that made Jasmine freeze. Chief Justice John Roberts. He wasn't just in the room, he was leading it. The laptop screen flickered. And then Phase 3 activated. To be continued. Jasmine Crockett hits. Back after $200,000 fine, what she said left Judge Roberts speechless, written in simple, cinematic English, 900 words. The moment the words Phase 3 activated flashed across Jasmine's screen, the laptop shut down with a hard click. Not a crash, a kill switch. She stared at the dark screen, heart pounding. She had expected danger, but not this fast. Not this clean. She yanked the flash drive out and tossed it into a ceramic bowl of water nearby. It fizzled slightly, fried on contact. Jasmine didn't move for 10 seconds. She just listened. The silence wasn't normal. No faint hum from her refrigerator, no chirp from the hallway smoke detector. Something was off. She got up slowly, scanned the living room. Nothing moved. She walked toward the door and froze when she saw the light on her alarm system had turned red. It had been green when she entered. Someone had been inside. She backed away from the door. Quietly walked to the kitchen drawer, grabbed the emergency burner phone, and stepped out onto her balcony. She dialed Ezra. He picked up in one ring. "You opened it, didn't you?" he said without hello. "They shut it down instantly," Jasmine whispered. The whole house went silent. "You triggered their signal trap," Ezra said. "They now know you have the video file, and they're going to assume you made a copy. That means they'll escalate. I didn't even get to save it. Doesn't matter. To them, perception is everything." She was silent a moment. John Roberts was in that room, she finally said. Ezra didn't respond. He didn't have to. "I need a secure way to show this to the world," she said. "No, that's how you die," Ezra said bluntly. "Isn't about leaks anymore. It's about leverage. That video isn't a smoking gun. It's your only shield." Was a long pause between them. "They'll use the fine again. Maybe bigger this time. Maybe something worse." "I'm not afraid of court," Jasmine replied. "Should be," Ezra said. "'Cause court isn't real when the judges write the rules in secret rooms." The next day, the headlines shifted again. Crockett under ethics review following. Late-night tech breach somehow. Footage from her encrypted laptop session had already been edited and leaked. Only this version looked very different from what really happened. The segment showed her accessing foreign data and attempting to remove government files. Her staff was stunned. "Who leaked this?" Nora asked, holding the tablet. "It's not real," Jasmine said. "But they don't need real. They need reasonable doubt." Across the city, the Supreme Court issued an unusual mid-session press statement. Chief Justice Roberts would temporarily reduce public appearances due to unrelated matters of health. He was hiding. Ezra sent a message that afternoon. "Do not respond. Do not post. Meet me at the Library of Congress, Archives Wing. Bring nothing digital. We finish this tonight." At 8:07 p.m., Jasmine slipped through the southeast entrance of the Library of Congress. It was officially closed to the public. But the lights were still on. She passed through marble columns, past bronze railings, and made her way to the lower archives wing. Ezra stood waiting in the middle of the microfilm. Vaults around them, cold air, history, and no cell signals. He held a folder in his hands, thin, fragile. "This is the original Echo Chain Charter," he said, signed by officials from 5 nations. One of them was the U.S. Secretary of Defense. Another was the now President of France. Jasmine took it slowly. "Where did you get this?" a journalist who vanished in 2021. His apartment was cleaned out, but he mailed this before he disappeared. I'd been sitting on it ever since. Jasmine flipped through the pages. Every paragraph was worse than the last. Surveillance agreements, legal immunity clauses, approval for data, interception during civil unrest events. They gave themselves the right to spy on citizens and rivals alike, without oversight. Ezra nodded. That Berlin meeting wasn't about peace, it was about control. And the only reason they've survived this long is because people like us are too afraid to push the first domino. She looked up at him. Then let's push it. Across town at the Supreme Court's private residence hall, John Roberts sat in a dark room, sipping from a glass of water with shaking hands. A red file lay open on the table before him. Jasmine's photo stared back at him. He picked up the secure phone. She opened the file. He said to the voice on the other end, "We know. She saw me." A pause. "You were always going to be exposed," the voice replied. She just happened to be the one who lived long enough to reach the truth. Roberts leaned forward. "What do you want me to do?" "Authorize Phase 4. Swallowed hard. That's martial law on cyber grounds. It's also your only way out." Back in the archive room, Jasmine and Ezra packed the files into a hidden film canister. She looked at him. "What if this kills my career?" Ezra replied quietly, "Then you die honest? That's more than most people in that building can say." The blackout wasn't citywide. Only the lower archives of the Library of Congress went dark. Jasmine froze, her breath visible in the cold air. Ezra instinctively reached into his coat and pulled out a small pen light, clicking it on. They both stood still. Somewhere in the distance, they heard the soft mechanical sound of a security gate unlocking. "Backup power should have kicked in," Ezra whispered. "It didn't," Jasmine said. They cut it remotely. Ezra took her by the arm. "Time to leave." They moved fast but carefully, winding through the maze of archive shelves. Past original manuscripts and aged government secrets that now looked like ghosts in the flashlight's narrow beam. Then they saw it. The door they had entered through was now shut, locked from the outside. Jasmine felt her heart pound harder. She turned to Ezra. This was a trap. "No," he said quietly, eyes scanning the ceiling. "It's a message." They moved to a maintenance exit near the northwest stairwell. Ezra pulled open the utility panel and reached inside. He typed something onto a hidden keypad embedded behind it. After 5 tense seconds, a loud click. The steel door opened slightly. He turned to Jasmine. "They'll trace the code. I just used. We've got 60 seconds." They ran out into the cool night air of D.C., into a side street that smelled like gasoline and wind. A black SUV passed them, slowed, but didn't stop. Jasmine kept moving. Across the street, a white car idled. Ezra pointed. "Get in. That's our exit." The driver inside was a woman with a calm, unreadable face. Dark suit, earpiece, she nodded once as they climbed in. "Who is she?" Jasmine asked. Ezra didn't answer until they were several blocks away. "She used to run intelligence out of Nairobi. Now she works freelance, codename Atlas." The woman driving finally spoke. "You both just triggered something ancient and unfinished. I'll call it national security, but it's a digital empire you're threatening." Jasmine stared out the window. "Then I need to speak. Soon, before they silence me too." Atlas shook her head. "Not yet. Not loud. First you build the fuse, then you light it." That morning, CNN reported Jasmine had disappeared. Fox News called her a fugitive of accountability. The New York Times ran a half-factual article implying she was being sought for questioning about digital tampering. And Judge John Roberts, he issued a public statement through court channels. "No individual is above the law. And those who threaten our institutions must be reminded of that with clarity." But his voice in the clip trembled slightly, just enough to reveal what trained eyes could see. Fear, Jasmine. Watched all of it from a small apartment above a bookstore in Northern Virginia. Safe house, no internet, no phone. Shh, Alanda. With one number, Ezra's burner. She studied the documents Ezra had handed her. She knew the public wouldn't understand paragraphs. They needed a moment, a symbol, a voice. She looked up. I need a camera. Ezra looked doubtful. It'll expose your location. Not if we record it analog, she said, and mail the tape. He paused, then nodded slowly. Then, we write the statement, one shot, one take. 12 hours later, a package arrived at 3 major networks. No return address. Inside, a VHS tape marked only with a handwritten line, for those still listening. The next morning, the video played on Al Jazeera first, then BBC, then eventually MSNBC and The Intercept. Jasmine sat at a wooden desk. No makeup, no notes. Just her voice. She stared directly into the camera. My name is Jasmine Crockett. I am a congresswoman, a citizen, and I have not disappeared. I have stepped back so I can step forward with the truth. She paused. You are being lied to. She laid out the echo chain. Not all of it. Not names, not yet. But the system, the silence, the surveillance. Then she revealed what happened to her fine. That it was used to force compliance, that judges weren't always neutral. That Roberts himself was present at a meeting the public was never meant to know about. And finally, I may not survive this, but they count on your silence, not mine. She stood, walked away. The screen cut to black. Within 48 hours, the tape went viral. Millions of shares. Media struggled to verify it, but the fear was already alive. Twitter trended with hashtags like #CrockettTruth and #EchoChainLeak. Late-night shows hesitated. They weren't sure whether to joke or to panic. In D.C., private security around Roberts increased. His family moved to an undisclosed location. The White House issued a vague statement. No comment at this time. And on a dusty table in the CIA's digital threat room, single monitor lit up with a warning. Echo chain, breach risk, civil protocol level 4 and below it. Locate Jasmine Crockett, alive or not. To be continued. Jasmine Crockett hits back after $200,000. Fine. What she said left Judge Roberts speechless, written in simple. Cinematic English, approximately 900 words. In a quiet D.C. cafe near DuPont Circle, Ezra sat alone at a corner table, pretending. To read a newspaper, he wasn't. The small wire in his ear buzzed once. Secure. atlasvoice.com/cold. Controlled, she entered moments later, carrying a paper bag and sunglasses. She didn't sit down. She simply dropped a bag onto Ezra's table and walked away. Inside were 3 items: a burner phone, a USB drive, and a printed satellite image of a black site located 60 miles west of Langley. At the bottom, one phrase scribbled in red pen: she's being hunted, not silenced. Yet Ezra looked up, his throat dry. He reached for the phone, turned it on, and waited. Within 5 seconds, it rang once and disconnected. It had begun. Somewhere deep in Virginia, Jasmine moved quietly through the empty barn-turned-safe house. The windows were covered, air was cold and smelled of wood and damp leaves. Had barely slept. Ezra's last message came 8 hours ago. The video had gone viral, but so had the threats. Calls were coming to the bookstore from fake journalists, law enforcement, even someone pretending to be a childhood friend. All trying to find her. Atlas had disappeared too. Ghost protocol, Ezra had said. Jasmine knew what that meant. If Atlas was staying quiet, it was because something serious had changed. And then the phone rang. Not the burner line, the landline. She froze. No one had the number. She picked up static, then a familiar voice. Male, soft, almost kind. Congresswoman Crockett, you should have stayed quiet. Her stomach dropped. The line went dead. Within seconds, headlights appeared through the cracks in the barn walls. Black cars. Not FBI, not media. Private. She grabbed the satchel containing the original Echo Chain documents and bolted out the rear door into the woods. Gunfire cracked behind her, one, two, then a third that hit the wooden door just as it slammed shut. She didn't stop running. 30 miles away, in a heavily secured room beneath the Pentagon, Judge Roberts sat facing a screen. His face was pale, exhausted. Sweating on the screen was a man in shadows. Only the voice spoke. "You should have destroyed the chain when you had the chance." Roberts gripped the edge of the desk. "I didn't think she'd access it." Ezra's file was flagged. "I assumed you don't get paid to assume, John?" Roberts' voice cracked. "If this reaches the European press, it won't." A long pause. "If she's still breathing tomorrow," the voice said, "you'll never sit on the bench again. Do we understand each other?" Click. The screen went dark. Meanwhile, in the woods, Jasmine reached a small drainage tunnel. Beneath a nearby farm, she crawled in, wet and freezing, but silent. She waited for hours. When she finally emerged, it was near dawn. And Ezra was there, holding a flashlight. "I used the red failsafe," he said simply. She stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, "we don't just leak pieces anymore. We leak the whole damn chain." She hesitated. "It'll burn DC down." Ezra nodded. "Maybe it's time it does." That afternoon, 4 major foreign outlets received a data drop with full logs of Operation Echo Chain, a classified surveillance project that linked top U.S. judges, tech companies, and a multi-billion-dollar black budget to the suppression of journalists, foreign activists, and whistleblowers going back to decades. It's what's real. Names, payments, deaths, cover-ups, and Roberts, right in the center. Jasmine watched it all break on screens inside an abandoned railway control room. She barely spoke, just sat staring. The weight of the truth finally heavy enough to crush silence. Ezra handed her a phone. Atlas was on the line. "You're out of time," she said. "They're coming with real teams now. Military contractors. It's not legal process." Jasmine closed her eyes. "So what do I do?" "You disappear," Atlas said, "until the people decide what to do with the truth." A long silence. Then Jasmine spoke, not to Atlas, but to Ezra. "I want to record one last message." Ezra nodded. "We'll go live this time," he said. That night, as cable news descended into chaos, Jasmine Crockett went live again, but not from the safety of a studio. It's from the ruins of a forgotten monument in DC at midnight. No lights, no producers. It's just a single camera and her voice. If you're watching this, then you know the system isn't broken. It was built this way. She named names. Roberts, the funding network, the senators who signed classified approvals, and the journalists who looked away. I won't run. I won't hide. But I also won't wait to be silenced. She lifted the satchel into frame and poured its contents onto the ground. Thousands of pages, one after another. As they scattered, the screen glitched slightly, just for a second. Then a cold whisper came through the feed. Rain started falling over Washington as Jasmine stood alone, surrounded by the scattered documents of Echo Chain. Her breath formed mist in the cold night air. The signal was fading. The feed was glitching, but the world had already seen enough. Her face was everywhere. Tickers screamed Congresswoman exposes classified surveillance program. Some outlets called her a traitor. Others hailed her as the voice of the broken republic. In Langley, inside the CIA's crisis communications room, alarms buzzed in red. Agent Dunley turned from the feed and looked to Director Webb. She activated end protocol. Webb didn't flinch. "Then she's forced our hand." He reached for the secure line. "Move on, Alpha Target." Full wet authorization. 5 miles away, Ezra sat in the driver's seat of a stolen sedan. Jasmine sat beside him, barely blinking. "You still have the last drive?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer with words, just opened her palm. The small silver capsule glittered. In the dashboard light, this one has the judge's votes, she said. Not just Roberts. The real web. Supreme Court leaks. Visa approvals. Backroom deals with foreign agencies. Ezra exhaled. They'll crash the entire judiciary. The point. He turned onto a side road that led through a tunnel. Safe house is 2 hours north. Rural satellite blackout zone. Once we're there, a sharp beep interrupted him. The dashboard screen flickered. Shit, satellite lock. What does that mean? Jasmine asked. Gripping the dash. Means they've found us. Seconds later, headlights blazed behind them. 2 black SUVs. No plates. No sirens. They weren't coming to arrest. Ezra hit the gas. The sedan jumped forward, tires screaming. Jasmine held tight as the car swerved onto a dirt trail. Jumping over potholes, dodging branches, mud spraying the windows. Gunfire shattered. The back glass. Jasmine screamed but held the drive close. Don't stop, she shouted. We're not, Ezra said. But if we don't split, they'll get both of us. She looked at him. No, listen, he barked. You have to. Get the drive to Elson. Elson, she asked. He's in hiding. He'll never come forward. He will, if it's you. He owes you. The car swerved again. Head, a dark opening appeared. An old maintenance tunnel. Ezra jerked the wheel. The car slammed through. Rusted metal gates and into darkness. Inside. The roar of tires echoed off concrete walls. Ezra slowed slightly. Out. What? Out, Jasmine. Take the drive. There's a side door 10 meters up. Leads to a trail. It'll take you to Route 17. She stared at him. What about you? I'll draw them off. No, he handed her a flashlight and a bag. You're the story now. They won't follow me if they think I'm dead. You leak this, and the truth survives. If you don't, this whole thing was just a moment. Jasmine's eyes filled. Her hands shook. But she nodded. She opened the door and slipped into the dark. Ezra drove on. Moments later, the SUV crashed into the tunnel behind him. He smiled faintly and floored the gas at sunrise. Jasmine emerged from the trees onto Route 17. A dusty pickup pulled over. The man inside squinted at her but said nothing. DC, she said, holding out a gold coin engraved with a symbol only one man would recognize. The driver nodded once. No names, he muttered. That evening, Judge Roberts was nowhere. To be found, his official schedule was cleared. His phone shut off inside the Supreme Court building. Clerks whispered rumors. A plane. Safe house overseas. Or worse, an unmarked door in the Pentagon. But his cameras panned across his empty seat. The next morning, something even more shocking happened. C-SPAN aired a new clip. Jasmine Crockett standing on the Capitol steps, surrounded by journalists holding up the silver drive and saying, "Clearly, I am not afraid." She handed the drive to a known international transparency group live on air. Across the world. Governments scrambled. Senators resigned. An arrest warrant for Ezra was filed but never executed. His body was never found. 2 whistleblowers confirmed the Echo Chain program within 48 hours. And Judge Roberts' love. Weeks later, without a trace. Weeks later, Jasmine stood alone inside her former office. Most of the lights were off. She touched the wall once and breathed in. The building felt quieter now. Less angry, more watchful. Behind her, the door creaked open. Atlas entered. "You survived," she said. Jasmine nodded. For now. Atlas handed her a file. Something new. Codename, Sovereign Mirror. Jasmine didn't open it. Not yet. She turned to the window. Outside. Protesters marched in silence. Not for her, for truth. Real truth. Atlas looked at her. "You're not running." Jasmine shook her head. "Not this time," she whispered, almost to herself. "Let the system come for me. I'm not afraid to burn it down again." And with that, the story faded to black. But in quiet corners of the world, the next fire was already being lit.